So, Professor Youling Qiong started his career in China, and then you moved to the United States, and you received your master's from Oregon State University, your PhD at Washington State University, and your postdoc training you did at Cornell University. And you have served as a professor of University of Kentucky since 1990. And your research is focused on chemical, physical, and biochemical mechanisms that regulate how proteins and peptides work in food, especially in processed products with meat and fish. And the title of your lecture is Functionalities of Food Additives and Enzymes in Muscle Foods. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor Carlson, for the nice intro, especially the very touchy words about Shaston. And to me, I knew Shaston very briefly. It was really through the Birdable Prize process. So it became so dear to me because she was the reason I received the award. It was January the 27th when I received the last email from Shaston, and she sent the word to me, yes, I will be looking forward to seeing you. And very happily, the following day, she came up to the gala in Stockholm to join the celebration. And I had the opportunity to meet with Shaston and also her lovely husband, Anders. And that was, again, it was a very brief moment, but we had a very good time chatting, talking about research in the States, in Sweden, and really had a very good time. And she did give me, I was wishing her well, and I said, well, many good years to come, but things happened later on. But we still in a fond memory, and we had a photograph taken together, and my wife was taking a picture for us. And also, and as I said, and I knew Shaston through my good colleague, Melvin Hunt from Kansas State. And he's also a meat scientist, well known in the States and global as well. And we just came back from Thailand, attending the International Congress of Meat Science and Technology. So we had the photograph taken together. And one other thing I will add to Anders' point, and I actually have the privilege to know the last PhD student Shaston has mentored, and her name is Xin Li. She now works in Beijing, and just through all the connections, so I think Shaston must be watching from above, be very happy to see her mentees are now doing very well. And before I start the talk, and first of all, I want to thank Birdable's Foundation for sponsoring the prize and also the Congress, the symposium, and also to KSLA for organizing or putting everything together. I know there's a lot of work, and being an organizer for other meetings, I really know every sweat that you put in, it takes a lot of effort to put things together. And food additives, we have heard so much this morning and early this afternoon already from some excellent speakers. And food additives here, I just want to make a little definition here from a U.S. perspective. And food additive here, based on the USDA's definition or FDA's definition, any substance that is reasonably expected to become a component of food. This, of course, is a very general definition. And when we look at the purposes, there are 4 of them, and they are to maintain freshness and safety, and to maintain nutritional value, and to improve the texture, taste, and appearance. And finally, but very importantly, to aid in food processing. That's when food enzymes are considered. Now, the difference between food additives and food ingredients, very simple, quantity. And when consumers hear about ingredients, there's no problem. When you talk about food additives, they start thinking there's something harmful. So here, I guess I'm trying to say something real positive to share with us or with you together why food additives are important. Without food additives, what kind of food are we going to consume? Here's a picture you may not see from the back, and I came yesterday from Copenhagen after all the thunderstorm, rain, and I was very hungry. We didn't get to this place till about 2 o'clock in the first, and I went to the restaurant with my wife was to grab something that can really satisfy my appetite, and that was sausage here. And when you look at the sausage, it's very, very tasty. It has a good aroma, and it's juicy. The texture is quite nice as well. But imagine without food additives, without the salts, phosphate things, it's very difficult to generate this type of delicious food. So here, food additives are here to stay. Again, I mentioned earlier, food additives are added to muscle foods for different purposes, for flavor, color, texture, mouthfeel, and from the water holding capacity standpoint, the juiciness, product stability, and shelf life. And here I'm going to spend some time talking about antioxidants, and to generate a variety of products that consumers can enjoy, and very importantly, also food safety. And I just quickly show a few examples. And in the U.S. market, we see a lot of ready-to-eat products, and whether it's produced by Tyson, by Oscar Mayer, by a local product company, Kroger, and they all have something in common. They use different ingredients. Now, ingredients are a good term for additives, and sometimes we use additives. Actually, the purposes are the same. And here again, roasted beef, beef pastrami, salami, and here again, look at the ingredients. And here they don't use the term additive, because additive is really a negative term. When you put ingredients, ham, water, honey, look at sodium lactate, spices, sodium phosphate, salt, and sodium erythrobate, and sodium nitrite. And those are functional food ingredients. Meaning without these functional ingredients, it's very difficult to produce the type of meats that we enjoy and consume. So here is a list, incomplete list, I would say. And meat ingredients here, salt, phosphate, antioxidants, nitrite and non-nitrate, binders, enzymes, antimicrobials. Now, these are functional, meaning their presence in processed meat will really enhance the characteristics of the product. It will convert something tough into tender, convert something that is dry into juicy, and convert something that does not have much flavor to flavorful products. So that's what we say the functions of these additives or ingredients. Now here what I would like to go through are mostly would be traditional ingredients or additives. But here I will also share with you some of the emerging ingredients, especially those natural ones that the industry is applying now to meats. And also a lot of the products are developed through our research efforts. And here this morning we heard about from farm to table, especially Lynn gave a talk, very nice, talking about a consumer's perspective. And here we can put a feed additive in animal feedlot to enhance the nutritional value of meat. But most importantly here, as a meat scientist, we work with ingredients here. And that's where we really can do a lot of things to enhance the safety of meat products, at the same time enhance the quality in terms of organoleptic and the nutritional values. So what I like to do is to separate the additives, ingredients, into two major groups. So one is micro, not micro by quantities, by the size of the molecules. And the other group is macro in terms of the size of the molecules. And the other thing is the meat safety. And this one I will introduce a little bit later on, going through several compounds, or you still may want to use the word additives, and what kind of functions they provide in meat products. And starting with the salt. Salt is very simple. We add salt to meat products for the taste. But that's not the real reason. In my opinion, the main function is to extract the proteins. So I'm going to talk a little bit in terms of technical functions here. And we can use monovalent chloride, sodium, potassium, or lithium, especially the sodium, and calcium, to a certain extent, can help extract the protein. So as I mentioned earlier, salt provides the taste. But we really can use other ingredients to replace salt. It's quite possible. For example, we can use the yeast extracts. We can use the potassium. But what is difficult to replace is the ability of sodium chloride to extract a protein. Once the proteins are extracted from muscle cells, upon cooking, the proteins will form a gel. The gel is what is binding the water together to give us the juiciness taste. And also, the extracted proteins will emulsify lipids here to stabilize the fat particles. And therefore, when we eat a hot dog or luncheon meat, we don't see greasiness. And that's because the fat has been stabilized by the protein membrane. So the protein must be soluble. The only way to get the proteins soluble is to add salt, phosphate as well. So this function to solubilize protein here is not something other additives can achieve. So sodium chloride is critical for that purpose. And here, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the science here. Here is the relationship between the amount of salt we add and the extractability, or the amount of soluble proteins here. The critical concentration range is somewhere about 1.5 to 3% salt. And that's when my fibrillar proteins are extracted. The extracted proteins then can form a gel, can emulsify fat. And here again, and this is a slide I used to teach my advanced meat science to explain how salt works. Basically, it has to do with charges. And here, sodium carries a positive charge, chloride is a negative charge, and water is a bipolar molecule. So it's kind of chemistry to extract. So I'll just skip that. Now, in recent years, there's a push, not just in Europe, in US, again, salt is responsible for a lot of health issues. Blood pressure, I take medicine, and I'm trying to avoid the salt, but sometimes it's very difficult. Salt is causing a lot of health issues. Diabetes is related also, not to mention cardiovascular systems. So the industry now in the US is trying to come up with some formulations to cut down the amount of sodium in a diet, in processed meat. And here's some examples. And the specific composition is not given because of proprietary reasons. But we do this combination here, for example, with potassium chloride. Potassium is known not to cause to raise the blood pressure. Tartaric acid to provide the kind of a taste, and citric acid works as well as sucrose. And we also have some other formulations. For example, we can add arginine, we can add lysine. And here, once you take the sodium chloride out, all of a sudden we lose the taste. And this is what we do in the industry now. To add IMP, inosine monophosphate. This is nucleotide, and it's basically hydrolyzed yeast. Okay. We also can use a little bit of monosodium glutamate. It's SMSG. And more importantly, or recently, we use a lot of protein hydrolysis to enhance the taste. And these compounds, they are known to enhance the salt sensation. So if you eat a 1% of salt, your brain tells you this is 2% of salt. So it's kind of artificially stimulate the neural system to tell us you are eating something tasty. So there are technologies available now. And here's another list of the ingredients. Now, if you want to use the word additive, if you wish, you may. And here we can use arginine, and we can use diglutamate. Essentially, this is a glutamate, glutamic acid, salt, lactate, lysine, so on and so forth. And these are also used to enhance the salt taste. So this is a trend, or if you will, the trend in the industry, meat industry now, trying to generate low salt products. Now, phosphate is an important one, and we have been dealing with a lot of controversies. And I know in quite a few European countries, phosphates are probably even banned from the processing, not just meat, from other applications. But think about how much soda we drink, Coke. Without phosphate, there's no Coke, no Pepsi. So we are eating phosphate. But the thing is, if for some individuals, if it's too much phosphate, yes, the kidney pressure will be higher. But usually, phosphates are safe. Now, in the industry, we do not use a simple phosphate. We add complex phosphate. And here, simple phosphate is orthophosphate. Usually, in the meat industry, we use a pyrophosphate, which is diphosphate, two phosphates linked together and form we call a pyrophosphate. Or we can work with a tripolyphosphate. and the cyclic phosphates. So these are different forms of phosphates. Now, when you look at the negative charges, each negative charge is able to bind with one sodium. So theoretically, we can generate a variety of phosphate compounds. Different phosphate compounds have different functionalities. And one of the special functionalities for phosphate is to help extract protein from muscle. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Without extracted proteins, we just cannot produce the type of meat products that are tasty, juicy. It's very difficult. And here what a phosphate can do is to basically extract myosin. Myosin is one of the major muscle proteins out of the muscle fiber. Once we have a lot of extracted proteins, then we can add heat to generate the type of foods. And here's some sort of chemistry here to extract the protein, how the proteins can form a gel. And here how proteins can coat the fat globule surface to provide stability. Not just the physical stability, but also chemical stability, because the membrane that is formed can prevent free radicals from penetrating into the muscle, into the cell, fat cell. And this is another thing that my laboratory in Kentucky has been working on. And nitrite is another common compound we add. And again, there have been some controversies about nitrite, especially with nitrosamines. The central is nitrosamines. But WHO, fortunately, has not labeled nitrite as carcinogen yet. And the label, the processed meat as carcinogen, but not nitrite per se. And here nitrite is really essential. At this point, for those meat scientists in this room, you agree with me, we can't find anything in nature that can replicate all the functionalities of nitrite. I see Eva is knocking your head. It's very difficult. Nitrite has multiple functions here to provide the nice color, and the microbial important, and especially the box of canned meat. Without nitrite, you cannot guarantee the meat will not have the botulinum, which is toxic. And it gives the cured flavor. And another important thing is antioxidant. And here's the chemistry we don't need to go through. And there's a concern again, because the consumers, this morning, Lynn mentioned, well, a lot of consumers do not like this, do not like that. Okay, what do you like? Tell us. Consumers say, we want something nitrite-free. Then we generated something artificially nitrite-free. Actually, we are adding nitrite. Leafy vegetables, cabbage. Here, we have turnip, we have celery, or even cherries. They're abundant. There's abundant existence of nitrate. So what we do in the industry in the US, USDA right now, is pretty much stands aside. So well, if you want to practice using the natural juices, you are free to do that. So companies are using juices expressed from these leafy vegetables or celeries, and because the juice contains a large amount of nitrate, then you add the juice to meat. Then you blend, you generate the color. So what is the concern? Safety, right? How much nitrate do we add? USDA so far, to my knowledge, has not said anything against. So then the company now becomes smart. It's okay. Why don't we convert nitrate to nitrite through fermentation? Now you agree, or you may not disagree, may not agree. Why don't we add chemical nitrate directly? Well, that's not consumers like. Consumers like you have something natural, because you squeezed it from vegetable, that's natural. If you add nitrite, that's not natural. It's perception. So companies now are doing to convert nitrate to nitrite through bacterial fermentation. So the nitrate is from the juices, okay? And then you convert the nitrite to nitric oxide when you process meat. And this way, we know precisely how much nitrite we add, because we already convert all the nitrate from the vegetable juices into nitrite. So this is the one trend in the US market. And the USDA seems to be pretty happy. So well, at least you're taking care of the safety issue. Because too much nitrate could be potentially carcinogenic. Here's a pre-fermentation. And then the other one, this morning, we have, I think Charlotte mentioned, gave a very good talk on the enzymes. And here I want to pick 3 enzymes that the meat industry now is utilizing as food additives. One is microbial transglutaminase, and this is not GMO. Okay, it's a selection, natural. And this is pretty much synthesized from Streptomyces, okay, with this enzyme. This enzyme is a large molecule. It converts, pretty much combines glutamine and a lysine between two proteins into a polymer. And this way, as you can see, this is a real case. This is Ajinomoto's product. And every year the company displays their products at the IFT in Chicago. And this is from meat trims. And they are able to use this enzyme to bind the raw meat particles together to form sort of artificial steaks. So this process really generates value. And now you can consume restructured beef steaks. So that's for obvious reasons. And also this enzyme is widely used in the fish industry. And here, my lab has been working with this enzyme for many years now. And we really proved by adding transglutaminase, we are able to increase the elasticity. Basically, this is the storage modulus. This is how strong the gels is. Remember, we extract the proteins from muscle. Then the extracted proteins during cooking can form a gel to bind the meat particles together. That's why we have the hot dog texture. That's why we have a lot of luncheon meats. So we really showed where the enzyme can really do the wonder. So the industry now is applying the technology. The only hurdle is image. USDA says you must put that in the label. If you put the label, of course, most consumers do not read. But in case some consumers do read, then you're in trouble because they will see something enzyme they don't like to see. You cannot sell the product. And another enzyme is also mentioned this morning. We use glucose oxidase, and this one to replace chemical oxidants. And believe it or not, we heard so much ascorbic acid, or even lipases or different oxidizing enzymes are added to bakery to enhance the gluten network. But in meat products, we're doing the same thing. It's just not something that is broadly advertised. So sometimes you see companies use a lot of blending, not use a vacuum, chopping the meat particles, to generate the hot dogs. And chopping, blending is one process. And in the chopping process, molecular oxygen is incorporated into the meat batter. So we understand oxidation really causes the cysteine groups to cross-link. So essentially, we enhance the network of protein in muscle foods. And that can give us the elasticity of a hot dog that we eat. And instead of relying on chemical reactions, we now use a glucose oxidase. And here basically shows how this works. We add a little bit of glucose, and glucose is converted to gluconic acid. In this process, hydrogen peroxide is produced. And the hydrogen peroxide will in turn oxidize cysteine, which is one of the amino acid residues in meat protein, to generate disulfide bonds. And that way, the protein network is strong. And that way, the processed meat will have nice texture. And here's a study. We have not published the results yet, but the companies are very interested in, and we're probably going to patent. And here, when we add more, as we increase the concentration of glucose or the enzyme, we can see significantly enhanced elasticity of the gel network. And here's just another way to evaluate the benefit. And the other groups of enzymes that we use is lipases. Now we say, why do lipid oxidation is something usually we try to purposefully avoid. Because muscle is very susceptible to oxidation due to the abundant existence of phospholipids and also a lot of fatty acids. But sometimes, depending on the products, lipases could be desirable. And a good example is dry sausage. Dry sausage tends to have a very strong flavor, and you can detect it. There's a little bit of lipid oxidation. Without oxidation, there's no dry sausage flavor. So what we are doing now in the lab is to use different types of lipases, and some lipases will selectively cleave the position. Here's a triacylglycerol from position 1 or position 2. And we use different lipases to really create different disaccharides versus monosaccharides. And in this process, we produce free fatty acids. free fatty acids are much prone to oxidation. So in this process, we control the oxidation. We tell the enzyme, okay, to cleave this fatty acid because there's more unsaturation in this particular fatty acid. So we cleave that one. This one, in our process, is going to be oxidized. Then we generate different aroma. So we can do that. This is, again, one of the developments in recent years. Now we're working with the companies to try to get this one commercialized. And this is an example of the product. And I did not get this one. I have to download from. It's not our product. We already have many. I just somehow cannot find. And we generate control with one type of lipase. And actually, our products look very, very similar to this one. And again, by using different lipases, we are able to generate a different aroma that consumers may like. And also, we are able to reduce the processing time. Antioxidants. Now this is the opposite from what I just said, oxidation. Now why would antioxidants be necessary? For obvious reasons, because muscle foods are very susceptible to oxidation. So if we do not use antioxidants, we cannot guarantee. Sometimes oxidation is very difficult to control. And here's a list of the common ones: tocopherols, rosemary extracts, and also tea extract, licorice. These are widely used in the meat industry, especially in hamburgers, in sausages. Now to replace synthetic ones, BHA, BHT, so on and so forth. And more recently, our lab and several other laboratories in the US also in Europe, are developing protein hydrolysates, basically peptides. Many of the peptides demonstrate antioxidant activities. So I want to show you some of the research results because, again, our study are attracting a lot of industry attention. And here again, lipid-soluble antioxidants can be easily identified. And we are using water-soluble antioxidants here also, especially from hydrolyzed proteins, basically peptides. And here we're addressing the legal issues as well because FDA says, USD as well, they work together. As well, if we use synthetic antioxidants, the level cannot be exceeding 0.01% fat basis. Now, if we use the natural antioxidants, the limitation, yes, there are some limitations, but it's very, very loose. It's quite different. And here's one study that was funded by the industry. We used licorice extracts and versus rosemary. And here, we try to use the extracts that are concentrated in phenolic compounds. Phenolic compounds basically is something you can, when you eat, for example, when you drink tea, actually you're drinking a lot of phenolic compounds from the tea extracts. And here we use the extracts to replace the synthetic antioxidant BHA. Here's a butylated hydroxyl anisole. And you can see, when we use a 0.1% the level of licorice or rosemary extracts, we can totally replace synthetic antioxidants. And here we have identified the key components that are responsible for the antioxidative effect. Again, now we are adding natural additives to replace synthetic ones. Back to protein hydrolysis or antioxidants. And again, we have a lot of publications in here, and we have shown tripeptides or even tetrapeptides, different peptides, and they can inhibit lipid oxidation by scavenging free radicals. And here's one study we published 10 years ago. We extracted peptides from potato hydrolysates. We formulated the hydrolysis peptides into meat hamburgers. And as you can see here, without the addition of hydrolyzed potato protein, lipid oxidation continues during storage. But when we add hydrolyzed peptides, there's no oxidation at all. So we are able to totally inhibit lipid oxidation. And this technology, again, has been commercialized. The companies now are using our ingredients. Same thing here, Hema. And I want to mention she's a PhD student or a postdoc in my lab before. Now I'm glad you came from Spain to join this conference. And she published this article And we actually did the work a long time ago, but we published it later, several years later. And here we incorporate hydrolyzed potato peptides into sausage. And we see significant reduction in lipid oxidation as well. So again, using the two simple studies, and I want to illustrate to you natural antioxidants derived from proteins now can replace certain synthetic antioxidants. And this is one of the future trends. And this is different products where protein hydrolysis are being utilized. Okay, I want to just switch a little bit for the time's sake and talk about the natural compounds versus some synthetic that we can use to enhance food safety. And one of the things here is antioxidants that we can add to incorporate into meat products to reduce carcinogens, to reduce toxin formation. Last year we heard, it was in the news, October, WHO defined processed meat as carcinogen. And that generated a lot of debates or controversies. And we saw a lot of media reports. New York Times also printed a newspaper. But here again, as a meat scientist, we cannot ignore the report, especially when there's a lot of complaints coming from the public. So what do? We have to be proactive. We have to be responsive. So in this case, particular case, we thought maybe natural antioxidants can do something. And here again in Europe, and Eva, Dr. Thornberg's, you're going to talk a little bit more later on probably. And here we're going to address this issue by using natural antioxidants. Because we know many of the toxic compounds that are potentially generated, could, not always, it could be generated, are derived from lipids. Some are derived from proteins. And here we have lipid oxidation products, HNE, MDA. These could, at high concentrations, it could cause mutagen. And here, at high temperatures, heterocyclic aromatic amines could be produced. Again, these are the compounds that can cause carcinogens. And of course, we mentioned earlier nitrosamines. So with that in mind, we did some studies. And one of the studies was we completed a couple of years ago here. We addressed nitrosamine formation, but because when we add nitrite to process the meat, it is very difficult to totally avoid nitrosamine. So we add tocopherol, which is a vitamin E, and also different forms of isomers of vitamin E. And we also use tea extracts. As you can see, by incorporating these natural antioxidants in meat products, we can significantly inhibit nitrosamine formation. So this is one way to address the WHO's concern, or even consumers' concern. We can tell them, yes, we can help reduce the concern by using natural antioxidants. And the correlation here is quite significant. Here's oxidation of protein or oxidation of lipids, and correlated with the carcinogen formation, and also how we can inhibit the oxidation of proteins and lipids, and therefore we can inhibit carcinogen formation. As I mentioned earlier, heterocyclic aromatic amines and also polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, these are potential carcinogens, so we do not deny. But these compounds are generated at extremely high temperatures, usually above 150 when you grill. Now, what can we do? Well, there are several things we can do. One is by reducing the temperature of cooking. As we increase the temperature, we generate more carcinogens. That is fact. But what we can do is to add natural antioxidants. And this is one paper that was published to show this toxin formation is really a free radical pathway. So what we're thinking here, many other laboratories think also, is to add natural antioxidants. Here we can use rosemary. Here's from cherry, vitamin E, black pepper, and a variety of natural sources to inhibit these toxin formation. And here are some of the publications, including the ones published in my lab. And here is one of the hypotheses we put out together. And here we can inhibit the toxin formation or carcinogen formation by directly binding of the precursor of the carcinogen with natural antioxidants. And if the intermediates are already generated, maybe we can detoxify them. And the other way is to take the oxidants out of the equation, and therefore we can inhibit the the carcinogen formation. And regarding to the last one, detoxifying, this one's very interesting. And I cite this one from one of the publications here listed on the top. So what they are saying is, once the toxins are already generated or even consumed, we are able, if we consume natural antioxidants also, we are able to divert, to change the pathway. In other words, to stimulate the cell, to tell the cell to generate more defense enzymes. And therefore, those enzymes can be upregulated, they can detoxify to remove the toxins. So this is another benefit of using natural antioxidants in meat products. And additives strategies to mitigate biological threats, especially microbiological pathogens. And here again, ready-to-eat meat is everywhere. And ready-to is a RTE and food safety concern, because the RTE is what we know the concern, because it's ready to eat. And the concern is, well, this is dead meats we see, consume lunch meat, is Listeria monocytogenes. Because after cooking, and all the pre-cooked products is nicely packaged, right? But when we open, there's no guarantee Listeria monocytogenes will not grow, because this is the only pathogen we know so far that can grow and proliferate at refrigeration temperatures. So what in the industry, what we do now is use what we call a post-pasteurization thermal processing. We also, what we can do is antimicrobial additives here. Okay, and these are different strategies we can do. And I want to highlight, just use a few minutes before my allocated time is consumed, is a natural antimicrobial agent. Here are some of the compounds, and I will list them. Some of them have already been commercialized. Here, for example, sodium lactate, diacetate, widely used in the industry. In the last few years, though, they're trying to replace with something else. And we also can use niacin and pediocin. Those are bacteriocins. They basically, as Bruce mentioned earlier, and a lot of bacteria like to produce their own toxins. It's about competition. So lactic acid bacteria like to grow, and they inhibit other pathogens formation. So let's just show a few examples. We can incorporate these antimicrobials through spray, through marination. And again, sodium lactate, sodium diacetate, these are the common ones. And these are some examples or studies published by using a little bit of sodium lactate and a very 0.1% sodium diacetate. We can almost totally inhibit pathogen formation in ready-to-eat meat products. So this is, again, widely used, some of the widely used food additives used in the meat industry. And niacin, which is a little bit expensive. Not everybody likes niacin because it could have some other issues. And here the pediocin, another one that is potentially usable in the meat industry. And here's the mode of action, because basically I don't want to get into a lot of details. They basically rupture the cell membrane. And here is again, we had a lot of spices and also extracts and a lot of phenolic compounds here, like the extract from garlic, extract from tea. They have phenolic compounds, and those phenolic compounds can work by inhibiting monocytogenes. And here's one of the studies we published several years ago. And we treated the pork patties or pork chops by using these natural extracts from spices. We almost can completely inhibit microbial growth. And here's a mode of action, active packaging. So here, put in summary, we can generate palatable foods and that consumers like, and also safe foods by working with the feed additives. But usually, food additive management is not quite effective. So the better way to do is to manipulate the processing conditions to achieve safety and quality. And with that, I trying to save some time here. I think my time is within 30 minutes or so. And I want to thank you all for participating in this wonderful symposium. And it goes back to the Bert Bolzer Foundation again, to KSLA. And also I want to thank Eva Thornburg, who sits on the back, and also Professor Wes Schilling from from Mississippi State, and to be willing to travel all the way to Sweden. And of course, and like Jan mentioned earlier, become a successful person, there's always a strong support behind you. And last December, and not last December, was December 2014, I was in Thailand attending a PhD student's defense. And I got the email from KSLA notifying I received the award, and I was in total disbelief, and I thought it was a mistake. I seriously thought it was a mistake. It was so prestigious, and I forwarded the email to my wife immediately, Sandy, and she said, no, it was not a mistake. And I, how'd you know? She said, because I want to travel to Stockholm. So I think she's smarter than I. And again, a lot of things to thankful, and I mentioned earlier, without Professor Shalston, without Dr. Hunt, and without the foundation, it's not possible for me to stand here to share some of the work that I did in my lab with you, and also some of the work conducted in other laboratories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Are there one question from the audience?
Thank you. I have a question about your protein hydrolysis. I was wondering, except for their antioxidant capacity, do you think they can contribute to their techno-functional properties as well in meat products, or is it not that relevant?
Yes, actually I didn't mention it because today I focus on antioxidant activity for protein hydrolysis. Basically, hydrolysates are mixtures of a variety of peptides, and there are multiple functions. Antioxidant activity is one of them, and hydrolysates or peptides can enhance water binding, can give us the taste. Not much flavor, but taste. And many of the peptides actually can inhibit the microorganisms. And these are the ones that have been studied and have been illustrated or demonstrated in different model as well as in situ studies. Good question.
Any more questions? Okay, otherwise, thank you very much again. Thank you. We give you a hand.